So you've got the tattoo, you're not happy with it. Instead of focusing on the tattoo and what you can do with it, take a step back, slow down, and assess why you made that decision in the first place. What led you to get that tattoo? Why did you think it was a good idea? And the applicable process that I have for this can be illustrated in a simple growth chart of a plant. So if we think of a seed as your initial idea or your motivation. Hey everyone, it's Nara here, co-founder of Tattoo Pathway, and I wanted to speak to tattoo regret. A lot of people are talking about it. Apparently we're in a tattoo regret epidemic. So we're just going to look at it, unpack it a little bit. I'll go into the number one reason that leads to tattoo regret. This is backed by our survey, also by analyzing the top 50 posts in the Reddit advice forum. So we've done our homework. I'm also going to show an applicable way to avoid tattoo regret. We've also got a guide, which is called the Tattoo Regret Reset. It's a 55-page PDF. It goes into more reasons, more research, more statistics, and also offers more solutions for anyone that is experiencing tattoo regret to help reframe it, reclaim their story, and also to give you a pathway where you can mitigate the potential of tattoo regret more effectively. So the number one reason is that the meaning of the tattoo has changed. That means the reason that someone's gone in and got tattooed, the thing that they thought, yep, this is solid enough for me to get a tattoo to mark it in my skin, hasn't held. They haven't anchored in something substantial enough, and it shifted underneath their feet. What people might want to do in response to this situation, how many people approach tattoo regret, is they instantly go to cover it up, or because there's easy access to a lot of highly evolved laser removal these days, they just go and get it blasted off or blasted over. And what happens is they're just reaching for a real surface level solution. And the analogy is of a headache. If you have a headache and you just want to get rid of it, you've got to reach for a painkiller. You've got to reach for the Panadol or the aspirin, and it will relieve the discomfort of the headache in the moment, but you actually haven't identified the reason why you have the headache in the first place. And that could be something like stress or dehydration. And so what it is that I want to point your attention to is, why are you experiencing tattoo regret in the first place? So you've got the tattoo, you're not happy with it. Instead of focusing on the tattoo and what you can do with it, take a step back, slow down, and assess why you made that decision in the first place. What led you to get that tattoo? Why did you think it was a good idea? And the applicable process that I have for this can be illustrated in a simple growth chart of a plant. So if we think of a seed as your initial idea or your motivation, your reason to get tattooed, and we look at that reason and it's in the ground, from that, roots will shoot, which give energy for the stem to sprout. We need to grab the stem and ask why. Before it flowers, before it produces the result of a tattoo. So if we think of the seed as your initial reason and a flower as the result, the physical act of getting tattooed, as it comes out of the ground, there's your opportunity to grab hold and to ask why. And what asking why at this point involves, if you really want to understand your motivations, the subconscious ones, the shadowy ones, potentially the embarrassing ones, is you need to uproot your reason, and you'll see that there's all of these different threads. There isn't just one root. There's multiple things that are influencing your decision, and you need to be able to make them all visible and decide which ones are substantial enough or which ones are shallow. Only substantial roots are going to last, are going to hold the tattoo through the entirety of your life. If you move into a process with shallow roots, if you haven't done this excavation, if you haven't asked why at the appropriate time, then there's a high chance that it might not take, it might not hold, and you'll end up with a result that doesn't feel good. So the next piece I want to talk about, because a lot of people have been asking me, is what actually happens when you get a tattoo covered or removed, psychologically, energetically. The physical side's obvious. You get it covered, you can't see the old tattoo. You get it removed and you can usually still see it. There's remnants, but it's easier to cover with something else. But like I said, underneath that, the reason that you regretted your first tattoo hasn't been seen yet. You haven't taken the time to excavate the site where the tattoo is being buried or obliterated with a laser. And the reality is you can't actually remove the tattoo, or you can't remove the information that's there. It's stored in the body. So if a tattoo gets lasered and all the particles get shattered and made smaller, they just travel and get stored deeper in the body. So the material of the tattoo ends up being stored in like the lymphatic system. So it travels further through the body. You might not see it anymore. You kind of just swept it under the rug. And a lot of the time with cover-ups, without laser especially, they just seem to take on a new form. The story and the energy that's there just gets reinforced. Another layer of paint without addressing what it is that's causing the bubbling or the disruption underneath the surface of the last coat of paint. And so what this process of asking why multiple times, at least 3 layers deep, what's underneath that? And what's underneath that? Until you can make the entire decision-making process, the subconscious, the conscious, all visible, it's a lot harder to move into a process of acceptance and change and transformation where you're actually feeling good about the tattoo, feeling right, and can move forward with a sense of it being resolved, opposed to avoided or denied. So if I'm working with someone on cover-ups or reworks or anything that has to do with an old tattoo and an old story that no longer fits, we make sure there is a point in the process for really healthy reflection and acknowledgement of how important or how necessary that particular point in time was, or that experience was, so that the energy of it, the charge that's there, can be resolved. I speak of large areas that get covered as burial sites, big black panels or shapes with old tattoos underneath. And burial sites are a sacred landmark on any terrain when they're done with reverence. They allow for decomposition of the material and an honoring of that version of self in a way that uplifts it and integrates it, opposed to trying to hide the body, in the backyard. Never happened. And I suppose the last thing that I want to talk about is potentially why tattoo regret is increasing and why potentially tattoo demand is decreasing. There's lots of statistics out, and these are like paralleling conversations, that the next generation's getting less tattooed and that regret's increasing. So we'll unpack the why a little bit from where I sit, what I can see. And that has to do with this increase in accessibility, increase in acceptance of tattooing, more artists, more studios, less pushback socially. But it also seems to be that there's actually less value. Tattooing seen as less valuable. When the process is rich and significant, deeply embedded in your development, linked to your identity, your story of transformation and change, in a healthy way, the value of the tattoo is so high. And the process is elevated. We see this in every culture in the world that has a traditional relationship with tattooing that's firmly embedded in their cultural story and system. But contemporary tattoo cultures, like with many things, just become this wash pool of almost nonsensical engagement. So obviously that's going to leave people confused and unsure about what it is that they've just participated in. But there's also this layer. Like I've said, it's important to have a healthy acknowledgement of the past, right? And so even in our contemporary tattoo culture, there's a lot of really credible, wise, talented, caring, thoughtful tattoo artists out there that have seen a lot. We're at a point in time where there's lots of tattoo artists that have 40 years experience under their belt. They've seen a lot of change. They've seen trends. They've seen good weather, bad weather. And they're not too fazed with what's happening. But the thing is, this opening, this high access in terms of being able to tattoo, being able to get tattooed, has created a really wide mouth, a really wide entry into the experience of getting tattooed. And it's diluted the quality and it's diluted the industry in a way that right now, what we're seeing right now is quite damaging. So there was a higher concentration of skilled and knowledgeable, credible practitioners, whereas now there's a really sort of frothy top layer, surface layer of the industry, which a lot of people are engaging with. And it's just going to take time for that layer to settle. Not everything that's happening now, not all the artists that are getting into the industry now will be around forever or have a big part to play in tattooing. But there's also this beautiful opportunity there for the industry to flourish if everyone at the top layer of this funnel cares about what's happening enough to really pay attention to what they're doing and what the result is for the people they're tattooing, acknowledging what's come before them and trying to learn as much as they can from those that have been doing it for a long time. So access is a big thing. It's not good or bad, it just is what it is. There's also really high access to tattoo removal at the moment. That business is booming. So if you have the option to get something removed, you're more likely to get it done without a fully formed reason. There's less apprehension. But we already touched on the reality of once you get tattooed, you're changed. And so there's no real backward steps. There's forward steps that just move you further into whatever that process is that you already started. And then there's also this like economic climate that a lot of people are talking about. Tattoos being a luxury or an item that's easily dispensable as the sort of nuts and bolts financially get tightened. I hear a lot of artists talking about that. But I think the reality is, again, it's if you're providing a service that's really high value beyond some lavish or leisurely surface engagement, then the people you're working with are going to value what you're doing. And even more so in times of uncertainty and crisis, processes that are supportive of somebody at the core are what they lean on in times of crisis. And I found that through things like the pandemic. People were more inclined to seek out the spaces and the processes and relationships that supported them and that they valued. So hopefully hearing some of these insights and reflections is useful in your own process. If you've got tattoos that you're not feeling that crash hot about, or maybe giving you some more things to think about in approach to your next tattoo so you can avoid tattoo regret. We've also got the Tattoo Regret Reset. Comes with an audio walkthrough as well, plus other bonus material. Please share, leave a comment, subscribe, whatever the things are that you do. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And hopefully we're helping tattoos suck less for people, because they're a really beautiful thing.